from Scarborough-Agincourt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Education.
Today is the International Day of Pink. The Day of Pink. As we learn more about concussions, we learn how big an impact that brain injuries can have. My question is for the Minister of Environment. Minister, today is the World Water Day. World water draws attention to one of the
Hello, I'm Soo Wong, Member Provincial Parliament for Scarborough-Agincourt. 我是黃素梅，我係黃素梅 Scarborough-Agincourt 安省議員。My family came to Canada in 1970. It was fall in 1970, and it was challenging because, first of all, English is my second language because my first language was Cantonese. Both my parents doesn't speak English or read or write English, and there were three of us. So I have an older sister and I have a younger brother, so I'm the middle child of the three, and it was difficult.
My name is Tat Wong. I'm the younger brother of Sue. We were all brought up in an environment where our parents were very hardworking. So to that extent, I think all three kids were driven by work ethics, perseverance, and honesty.
Thankfully, I have very good parents with very strong values and beliefs in education. My mother is a very, very devoted Buddhist, but at the same breath, she always encouraged the three of us to excel, to do the best we can be. And I learned very early that I have a role to play in terms of making a difference. As I said earlier, my mother was very strong, hardworking, very committed to Canada. She really believed that Canada was a safe country, a place for her children to succeed, but she was adamant that the three of us need to give back. I was very involved in high school. Starting grade 9, I was very involved, from cheerleader to cross-country running to track and field. I was involved in extracurricular sports like crazy.
Recollection of Sue was always kind of bubbly, but to make it sound a little worse, like she was flibberty-gibberty.
So really, so involved, and again, my recollection of her was that she was so committed, so involved, and so enthusiastic. These activities kept her quite busy, and needless to say, I think maybe she was late for class more than once.
I was elected as a vice president of the student council.
During that time, the school was predominantly male student, and the administration was, if I recall, all male.
And with over 1,000 students body, and I was the first female student council president. You can just imagine the challenges there. And then when I left high school, I went off to University of Toronto through the Faculty of Education to become a nurse. Again, very involved with the student body. I was the co-chair of Shinorama, which is a national body that raises funds for cystic fibrosis. So it was my little idea that I decided that we need to close down University Avenue to do our annual bed race, because traditionally you do the bed race on St. George Street. I said, nobody knows where St. George Street. Let's take this bed race down University Avenue. That's where the hospital for sick children is. That's where the stories is, and that's where the treatment and the research for cystic fibrosis. We were able to get the support of Toronto Police, and Mr. Godfrey for the first year was our marshal for the bed race. And boy, did we make a lot of noise. When I left U of T back in 1985, and then I got very involved with the Toronto Board of Health. I got elected to represent the East End, because I grew up in East End all my life. I represented the Toronto Board of Health in the late 80s.
One of the things that probably most impressed me was her enthusiasm for what she was doing and for how she realized what the importance and also the real understanding of what we were trying to achieve in improving the health of our city. And certainly as one of the directors of nursing, I felt I could really rely on her support to get the messages across that we wanted to have done. It does not surprise me she's now a politician and doing a very good job.
I decided to run in 1993 for the Toronto Board of Education, that's what it's called then, because I saw that I could be a voice, be an advocate, because in the Riverdale area, a good proportion of the population was Chinese, immigrants like myself, and I knew that I could make a difference. I remember very early in my term as a public school board trustee back in the 90s, starting the Reading Circle program, reading to kids in Gerrard Square. And I continued to do the Reading Circle here in Scarborough, but this time in the Toronto Public Library at Bridlewood Library, because I remember what the library gave to me. Through reading, I was given opportunity. Through reading, I see a new world. I can aspire to be anything and everything. I was determined to be the voice of the young people, but more importantly, for young voices of new Canadians, looking to Ontario, living in Ontario, that I could be that voice, but most importantly, thinking about the struggles that my parents went through. I still remember back in the 70s that I was ashamed as a young girl because my parents didn't speak English. And those parents' night was meaningless because I became the translator. How does a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old become a translator for the parents? For parents, that doesn't even make sense. But the system didn't understand the challenges of new Canadians or the newcomers, but most importantly, they didn't see the lenses of new Canadians. So when I ran in 1993, I knew that I need to be aggressive, but also assertive about the advocacy work that I do, and as well as a woman of color and a woman who grew up in Riverdale, knew those challenges, knew the community, but most importantly, working with people, because at the end of the day, my voice was about the people.
For me, working with Soo is just such an incredible pleasure because she is so hardworking and committed. No matter if it was around the education of children and youth or her work as a nursing professor where she advocated for public health care, she is very much the epitome of a strong, hardworking representative who has only the best interest of her constituents in mind. And that's what I admire most about Soo, is that she was constantly and always prepared for the job. But not only that, she brought a sense of community to the role. She would go out there, she would attend the events, she would connect with her constituents. And I saw that not only as a fellow trustee, but as a constituent in her ward. And I know that Soo is very much committed and she's passionate. She has the understanding not only in public education, but also from her role as a professor in nursing. And it's that really dynamic and unique perspective that she brings to any role that she's come to. And so it's great to see that she does that and does it in such a good way. And her slogan absolutely epitomizes what she stands for, and that's hard work works, and Soo Wong clearly shows that hard work really does work.
For us, it's very easy to support Soo because of her values. We really feel that her work efforts, her values around assisting her constituents and taking the time to really listen and, more importantly, act on some of what we feel are important issues in our community. It's someone that I really want my daughter to really also emulate and really try and learn from. I think, and I've spoken to her about this. She's someone who can be and is a role model for many young women here in our community, including my daughter.
So this is my constituency office. I'm very pleased to be here to share some moments with you, but more importantly to see what I do every week and every day when I'm here at the constituency office. First, listening to constituency issues, but also signing documents to help them to complete files that need assistance. But the other thing that's very interesting is the fact that as the first Chinese Canadian woman elected to the legislature, I'm very pleased and privileged to be given an opportunity to serve our people, our community called Scarborough-Agincourt, but also beyond the Scarborough-Agincourt borders, as you know. I get calls and invitations and requests across the Greater Toronto area. As the first Chinese Canadian woman, there seemed to be an interest in who I am, what I do in our community. But the other thing is, when I first came to Canada, it was under the Honourable John Robarts, the 17th Premier of Ontario. Now 2014, over 40 years later, I'm serving under the first woman Premier, the Honourable Kathleen Wynne. And as part of her team, I'm very proud and very privileged to be able to serve under the first female Premier. How time has moved, but how the full circle moment. Because at the end of the day, so much was given to me as a member of provincial parliament, as a young girl, those opportunities at school and in the community. Now it's my turn to give back and provide those opportunities, the next generation of women leaders, but also opportunity to young people in Scarborough-Agincourt, because I know they will exceed, they will excel in whatever they do, that they just need leaders like myself, give them those opportunities.
Sue continues to be that warm, inviting, welcoming person that she was back in the 70s, so many years ago. So she hasn't lost any of that charm, any of that delight, those kinds of positive vibrations that she gives out. And something that has stood well with her in terms of her being a member of Parliament and a sterling and welcoming person as our member of Parliament for Scarborough-Agincourt. Absolutely a delightful person. What she's added to that, though, is both experience, professionalism, and of course a superior intelligence. I really at this point thought and still think that she should have been placed in the cabinet, but maybe that's something that will happen in the next term.
Every day is my job as an elected member to champion the needs and the concerns of Scarborough-Agincourt, whether it be its healthcare, transit, the infrastructure. That's my responsibility. I know that I need to be the voice of Scarborough-Agincourt, but also the voice of the smallest child in a classroom.